remains the most difficult problem of all. How can I tell them this afternoon, explain to an audience the real meaning of a Hebrew university so that they will really understand? Can I do it in the space of a few moments? Is it possible? Ladies and gentlemen, I will begin. We have come to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Hebrew University. But what actually do we celebrate? Surely something more than a group of buildings standing here in Jerusalem. But what more? What else? I began to find my own full answer to that question just a few years ago. On the night of another celebration, the United Nations had just declared for a partitioned Palestine. Yochanan was the last to arrive, one of my better students. How much greater a lesson he was to teach me during the next few months than he ever learned in my geology course. There was a larger gathering than usual at my house that night, colleagues and students. We all felt the need to be together at this moment. It was a climax in the life of each of us. The center of our celebration was a newly discovered scroll, one of the oldest ever to be found. An early page in a history that was being made in this very hour and would continue to be made by such students as these. Rachel, Jerusalem-born, sober, reliable. David, the American, a newly arrived enthusiast. And Yochanan, also native-born, a Sabra, but the happy reverse of the other two. David and Yochanan could give only so much time to looking backwards. For them, the future was far more important. And immediately, there was the trip we were leaving on next morning to the north. David was off to the university's malaria station. We to the drillings at Tel Ephraim. The two places were nowhere near each other, except in the minds of the boys. Somehow, in spite of the map, they worked out a way we could all travel together. I spent more time riding in this truck, I think, than I did lecturing. This truck was a classroom. Our campus was as wide and as long as the country itself. As usual, I found myself in the least comfortable seat of our classroom. The boys had no respect for age. David in the middle of nowhere, a 5-mile walk from his research station. We went on to Tel Ephraim, hoping to find an empty landscape. If the derrick were down, it would mean that the drilling was over, that water was found. If the derrick were down. But there it was, a sharp, towering signal of failure, clear against the sky. My failure. The university's failure. wonder the men were sullen, irritable. They had come here, settled, worked, because we picked this spot with the promise of water. Our reputation was at stake. Their whole life as a community was at stake. Without water, they'd be burnt off the land. Their settlement, all their work would be lost. "62 meters. We couldn't ask them to drill very much farther." This was the final exam. For us at Tel Ephraim, for David working against the threat of malaria. In this university of ours, grades, degrees, academic honors were important enough, but these were not the final rewards for which we worked. Given our real passing grade in a word of thanks. We knew we had studied well when we could see the result of our work in the land that stretched out before us. I asked them to keep going just a little more, to keep the pumps working through the night. It was a move of despair. They didn't reproach me in words. But it was there, in the dead faucet, hot to the touch. Was there in the dinner we ate. Food served on bread to save dishwashing. Not half enough water to wash down the food that stuck in our throats. This was our final examination. The sight of these people, tired but still tearing at the earth because we students of the Hebrew University, told them there would be water. Found it hard to believe. We had passed, summa cum laude. We had passed with enough and more than enough to spare. Enough for a proper celebration. coming back to our classes with the news of our success. That trip was our last for a long time to come. In the months ahead, it became even more sharply clear how completely this university was a part of the land it served. The school grew as the country grew. And now, along with the rest of Israel, it faced a threat of annihilation as the thunder came echoing up from all the corners of the land. At first, we tried to ignore the interruption. Or, as with Rachel, we tried to fit the trouble into our curriculum. The girl was teaching in our experimental school Hebrew, the language of the school and the country. These youngsters from abroad found their own traditional language a strange and foreign tongue. They had to be taught that a boy was Yeled, and boys Yeladim, that a desk was Machtera, and a dress Simla. That 8 meant a tree, and Kad, a jug. That Misparayim was a pair of scissors, and that a bullet, a sniper's bullet, likewise had a Hebrew name. Kadur was a bullet. Kadur was a word they might have to use very often, almost as much as Kad Prachim. David let nothing disturb him. He had a particular aptitude for research in epidemic diseases. For the moment, he had no time to waste on more violent attacks. The gathering storm broke in full fury with the attack upon the university and the Hadassah hospital convoy going up to Mount Scopus. From my home, I could look down upon the Sheikh Jarrah quarter in which the convoy had been ambushed. The lead car had struck a mine. I phoned the British Army liaison officer. That conversation is present in my mind as though it were happening now.
That's right, Professor Berger. The lead car is on a mine. The rear vehicles are getting clear. They're away. We shall get the others out. Our people are with the Arabs now. The arrangements are a matter of minutes.
But the minutes went by, and the nightmare outside my window went on in the broad light of day. I remained at the phone. I called the Haganah to relay the message that British staff quarters were arranging a truce. They asked our people to cease firing. on the phone. How could they keep repeating that they were doing all they can? They had said that hours ago.
We're doing all we can, Professor. It's been very difficult. It isn't true the ambulance is burning. I can see it clearly. It has been hit, but it is not a fire. Not a fire. Now, hold on. Our men are going out now. The patrol is going out behind a smoke screen. I think they've reached the ambulance.
After 6 hours, the end came. 77 dead. Of the 28 left alive, 20 wounded. The road to Mount Scopus leading up to the university, barred by the Arab Legion, shut. That day marked our end as a university. And our beginning as part of an emerging army.
וחייכון וביומי חון וחיי בכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבן זורח לעולם ולעולמי אלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודש בריחו לעולם עם כל ברכתה ושירתה טוב בחתה ונחמתה דמירם ועלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה משמעיה וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
I mourned many deaths at the grave of Yochanan. I mourned a boy who was to me as a son. I mourned the fine and useful career he would never have. The work and plans of all of us, of the whole university, now brought to a stop. The dream inside of me went dead. I stayed at home, alone, until... Was it a gesture only, this reopening? Or could there still be a school, away from Mount Scopus, a real university? A part of Terra Sancta College was rented from the Franciscan order, and I went to have a look at this attempt to create a university in exile. Was it possible? The registration, at least, was enthusiastic, an infectious event. I was drawn into it, and soon found myself helping the registrars. We received an unexpected flood of would-be students straight from the army. The university had one of the largest student enrollments in its history. Perhaps, with such a driving response, anything was possible. Here and a corner there, we settled ourselves all over Jerusalem, from Terra Sancta to the edge of no man's land. The dust and shadows of these back rooms, the true meaning of our university began to come clear. You could see it in the students. Somehow they didn't seem like newcomers. They repeated the familiar pattern of all those who had passed this way before. The same will to learn and to serve was there. Nothing had changed, except the conditions under which they lived. It was hard, and still is, to find places for them all. The boy who wants to hold a geologist's hammer will start with the common variety used by carpenters. We had planned it differently up there on Mount Scopus. The books we needed, the instruments were there. The sight of that house on the hill was a regret and a challenge. The truth of a university was not in those buildings beyond our reach. It was in the minds and the hearts of those who came crowding into our halls. was hard, and it still is. Space is needed. Equipment is needed. Our laboratories and classrooms are not the finest in the world, but yet fine work is being done in them. I came to my first lecture in exile with a greater understanding than ever before. I knew where I was. I knew what I was doing. At the head of this classroom, I stood in the middle of a land. Talking to this class, I talked to a people, new faces that forever remained the same. And that is what I believe we celebrate today, at this 25th anniversary. The will of a people to exist, to create, to enlighten. To destroy such a people, one must cut the cord that binds them together. That cord is the unbroken continuity of Jewish thought and teaching. It was never cut. In every exile there were schools to teach and students to learn. The Hebrew University is the last link forged in our generation in this long chain of schools. Here in Israel, it remains the guardian of the continuing tradition of Jewish learning, as eternal as the people whose historic need gave it birth. The loom of history weaves a timeless tapestry, and our Hebrew University is part of the past as well as the present and the future of the Jewish people. For throughout history, the Word hath maintained this people, and the people now have created a place to maintain the Word. We are still at it, David and I, and this new one, Yehoshua. And as usual, I always end up with the least comfortable seat.